Okay, today we're doing 2 days today. Day number 112, April 22nd, 2 Kings 4 through 5. These 2 days in a row just kind of happens to be good because all these stories being told are stories reminiscent of other stories, folklore, stories from other religions. Chapter 4, 1 through 6 is reminiscent of the Jewish story of the oil, the lamp oil replenishing itself. Let me see, I'm going to go back here. It was the widows. Okay, what happened when people said these were simpler times, they were so not. It was only simpler for the wealthy white man. Well, the wealthy man back then. These weren't white people, they were brown people. The widow's oil, widows and their children apparently could be sold into slavery to pay off debt or be slaves of debt to the government. And you know what that means when a woman's a slave. She's raped repeatedly. She goes to Elisha, not Elijah, Elisha, and says, I'm going to be a sex slave. I have no money to pay off my debt. And Elisha tells her to go to your neighbors, get a bunch of empty vessels, and pour out what little oil you have in your one vessel, and just keep pouring and pouring and pouring. And so she did that. She got all the vessels from her friends, empty vessels from her friends, and it just kept coming out of her vessel. Her vessel wasn't even all the way full, so in other words, it just kept replenishing as long as she had vessels. When the vessels ran out, she had no more oil. When she ran out of vessels to put the oil in, the oil ceased to multiply. And then she went to Elisha, and Elisha says, now sell the oil to pay off your debt. Which, this is just simplicity. This is just saving her butt for the time being. So she pays off her debt. What happened? She's just going to accrue more debt because she's a woman, and women had no rights back then, especially no rights to have money, have a job, be respected, whatever. So this is just a fix for this solution. This isn't a fix for her. Her whole life is going to be abject poverty and rape, and it's just so. This is just a nonsense. But again, it's reminiscent. The point being, it's reminiscent of the 7 days, or was it 8 days of oil that lit the lamp. That's what is it? Hanukkah that's the purpose of Hanukkah. I don't know. It's one of the Jewish holidays that celebrates the 7 or 8 days that the lamp stayed lit, without replenishing the oil. And I think there's another biblical story that's reminiscent of the Jewish 8 days of oil. I think it's in the New Testament, though. Anyways, chapter 4, verse 8 through 31, reminiscent of Abe and Sarah's late-term child. Yeah, this is again, Elisha comes to the woman, or did she come to one day? Elisha came to, yeah, he came to her, very reminiscent, because he comes to her, not she to him. And he eats at her house, dines at her house often, and so she makes an extra room for him, and then he says, okay, I'll give you something that your heart desires because you're so nice to me. And then she says, oh, I don't have, or somebody tells Elisha, I guess Elisha wants this to be a surprise, and he's asking somebody else, and somebody else says, well, she wants a child, but her husband's old. I guess that means he's impotent, or his he's becoming sterile or has defective seed or something. Sperm or something. I don't know. I'm starting to talk like Bible, saying seed. Sperm. So anyways, he goes to her and he says, yeah, you'll have a child. And then she does have, and she says, just like Sarai says, don't mess with me. But then she ends up having a child. So this, again, reminiscent of that. Then, was it in here? Yeah, it's the same. Yeah, it's in the same chapter where the child has a headache and he dies, and then Elisha brings him back to life. This is kind of reminiscent of Lazarus. I think there is also another story where a child was brought to life, of course. I don't think we've read it yet. But it's like these stories repeating themselves. Chapter 4, verse 42 to 44, the loaves multiplying. They only have a couple loaves. This one is in the New Testament. The one this is reminiscent of is the one, the reason it's reminiscent of the one that's coming later is because the one coming later in the New Testament is something we've all heard, and from Bible class to adulthood. That's where Jesus multiplies the fishes and loaves, and I don't think there was any liquid there. But the fishes and loaves multiplied for the hungry crowd. Here it's just loaves. Let's see. 42 through 44. I don't think it really tells where these people... There was a famine in the land. Yeah, it doesn't say a crowd of people. I guess it doesn't really give any type of backstory to, or any setting to who he's feeding these loaves to. But it says... it went 20 loaves. He had 20 loaves, and he said, and Elisha said, give it to the people to eat. And he says, how can I set it before 100 men? For thus saith the Lord, they shall eat, and there shall be left over. And when they had eaten, there was some left over, as the Lord had said. Again, like I said, there was left over in the New Testament story. Now, let's see. I don't see anything here. In chapter 5 is very interesting. Either that or I just quit reading. Okay, so now we're on day 113, April 23rd, 2 Kings 6 through 8. Okay, 6, 1 through 7 is the axe fell in the water. Elisha makes it float. He throws a stick and makes it float. This is reminiscent of a fable I remember hearing a few times, long since lost to history, where an axe falls into, sometimes it's a well, sometimes it's a pond, a lake, the ocean, whatever, and it's resurrected somehow by some spiritual thing. It's usually not a person, but some type of a regular, what we deem a regular person. It's usually a spirit being somehow raises the axe back up out of the water. Chapter 6, 28, verse 30. Now, this one is not reminiscent of anything. It's just a very weird cannibalism story. Apparently, the famine was so great that people were resorting to cannibalism. Let's see, 6, 28 through 30. Let's see, this woman comes to Elisha complaining that, her and this other woman made a pact that one day they'd eat her son, and then the next day they'd eat this other lady's son. And the one day, yes, the one woman, they killed him and ate him. And then the next day, when this lady went to the other woman she made the bargain with, she refused to give up her son to be eaten. in sub-Saharan Ethiopia, there's great famine, okay, and there is cannibalism, but I don't think people are killing live people. I think they're eating dead people. Now, this is a story where they're killing live people. And this cannibalism does happen. I've heard it happen a lot on, shipwrecks all through time. There are some stories where they kill a live person. There are some stories where most stories are they're eating the dead. They're not killing live people to eat them. But, if the famine's that great, this is going to happen. Now, if this happened in the United States with all these fatties around here, we'd definitely see some killing going on to eat because people are not used to not stuffing their face. So, anyways, I don't know what this story is about. Elisha, then he rips his clothes and puts on sackcloth and walks around because supposedly, I don't know what this is supposed to do, but he's mourning. I don't know what it is. It just says he goes around sackcloth. Now, what is he going around in sackcloth for? What's he mourning? Because your sackcloth garment is supposed to be your mourning garment back then. What is he mourning? Is he mourning the death of his kids? Is he mourning the famine? Is he mourning that people are made to go through desperate measures just to survive? The Bible commentaries, some of them are really jerky. They're saying, people were sinning and this and that. Is it a sin to want to survive? I don't believe in God, so I don't believe in sin, but is it a sin to survive? Desperate measures, if God doesn't want people to sin, why does he make these desperate situations? Why does he make this famine to begin with? So, if that's your Bible commentary, that people are sinning left and right and this is the sin of the world, these people are doing desperate measures because they're in desperate situations. And that's really white of somebody to say saying that this is a great sin against the Lamb. To even call it a sin in that situation is just white. Anyways, but it's a really weird story. I don't know. This is proving that there's no God. This is kind of proving there's no God because this is having to go on because it's so desperate. But yet God's not stepping in and saying, you know what? I'll give you food. I'll give you rain so your crops will grow and so you have food. So you don't have to do this. No, he just, has it later on written down in a book so people can wonder what the hell is the story about. Anyway, so chapter 7, 17 through 20, it seems that these stories are made up to validate earlier prophecies. 17 through 20, what is it that the Lord put in charge of gay people something about in some type of war situation, some officer of the king was trampled to death in the gate. And then I think there was another one that was trampled to death in the gate. It's just like, and it says here, thus was fulfilled the prophecy of the man of God to the king. In other words, we wrote this story just so it would not confuse anybody as to, wait a minute, there was a prophecy and that never happened. So, yeah. I don't... Okay, there's nothing else really of any interest to me in this. I just pick out the interesting parts. I'm not going to do a play-by-play of each chapter. Most of the stories are just dumb and nonsensical. Anyways, this is the new doll I made. I finished the doll yesterday. This is it's made with all repurposed items, recycled items, or estates. Well, the thread is from an estate auction or garage sale findings of estates. I don't even buy the thread new. It would be too expensive anyways. I would not be able to make this stuff and afford to sell it at a price people would pay for it if I had to buy all this stuff new. Even just the thread alone would make it to where it's cost prohibitive. For the price point would be too high. for somebody to buy. Anyway, so this blue and white stripy thing, that was a shirt, 100% cotton shirt. This was, I call it upcrafting, where you're taking a craft that was started by one person that was never completed and then using it for something else. This was something somebody else made. They crocheted or knitted it, whatever you call it. I don't know the difference between crochet and whatever the other one is. Same thing here. This was from the same estate, from a person who never finished whatever they were doing. These I made myself. These little appliques I made myself. Buttons. Buttons were from an estate sale, auction. This hair, that's an old shirt. It's linen, 100% linen. A shirt that just got, with washing, just kind of started fraying and ripping. Appliques made by me. That was from that same craft. That's an upcraft from the same estate of the person who made that needle point and the crochet. My applique I made. Another from the auction, from estate auction, from the person who made this, made the other stuff. This was from some auction somewhere. I came into some, what do you call it, mass-produced appliques. I made this button myself that comes with everything I hand make. That's mine too, my applique. But you see the shirt, you can take out the stuffing and wash the outside. Hand wash, do not machine wash. This is too delicate to machine wash. Made with, the stuffing is made with bags. You know, hunky bags. Anyways, there you go.